Blacks in technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Welcome, everybody, to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast, the show where we talk to and spotlight Black engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. This is episode number 84 with our guest, Jenifer Daniels of Colorstock. This podcast is where they share with our audience their experiences, their ideas, their knowledge, and their perspective on tech. I'm your host, Greg Greenlee, and if this is your first time listening, you can check us out at www.blacksintechnology.net. We're also on the Twitters at Black in Technology, and that's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. And you can check us out on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group under Blacks in Technology. If you are on Twitter and you have questions for our guests, tweet them using the hashtag BitTechTalk. That's BITTECHTALK. Okay, so we're going to actually jump right into Q&A with our guests. Our guest tonight is Jenifer Daniels. Her alter ego is Gentrification. You can check her out on Twitter under that. And she is hell-bent on one thing, and that's improving the Internet's property value. She is the co-founder and CEO of Colorstock, and she brings diversity to digital spaces. She's been quoted in the New York Times, HuffPost Live, BBC News, Essence, and more. You can follow Jenifer and her alter ego on Twitter at Gentrification, that's JENTRIFICATION, or at JeniferDaniels.com. Jenifer, thanks and welcome to the Bit Tech Talk podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Definitely. So we're going to jump right into Q&A, and we're going to get into your background. We're going to talk about Colorstock, and we're going to let our audience know what that's all about. But first, give us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and what your background is.
Yeah. So I am a Detroiter, born and raised in the Motor City. And interesting story, my mother was one of the first Black programmers at GM. And I never knew this. Like, I always knew she worked on computers. I just didn't know exactly what she did. And so I found out in some recent conversations with her that she used to program in COBOL and Fortran and just awesome stuff. But she always had a computer in the house. We always had access to technology. And so I've always been interested in it, and I've always had like a knack for it. I don't think I ever liked science per se, and I definitely was not a mathematician, but I loved the fact that I knew that if you had a computer in the home, you could create things. And so I've always seen, computers as a tool of creation. Now, I was actually a lot more interested in sports when I was growing up. So I went to school for sport management and got my bachelor's in sport management. Loved marketing and PR and communication, so went back to school, got my master's in organizational communication and public relations. And for the past 15 years, I've worked for nonprofits, educational institutions, and I even adjunct also at a local university here. So that's my background. And what led me to the tech space again was my work in communications and just always needing not being patient, I guess. I was never patient enough to wait for the developer to write code for me or for the designer to make a graphic. So a lot of the things that I do is self-taught. And so that's what kind of brought me full circle and led me to the tech space.
Excellent, excellent. Big up to Detroit. Is Detroit 313? I know.
Yes, absolutely.
513.
I still have my 313 phone number. That's like, I will never let it go. You will bury me with my 313.
Okay. And by the way, GM, General Motors, in case anybody is wondering,
yeah,
it is. And I was in Detroit probably back in May, I guess. They had a software conference, a developers conference up there called Self Conference that I went. It was my first time, or not my first time being in Detroit, but my first time in a long time being in Detroit.
Yeah.
And I heard they had a real tech renaissance going on up there. I heard they're really trying to rebuild Detroit and bring tech. Are you aware of that or involved in any of that? I know you're not in Detroit now, but
no, not involved, but I pay attention every day. I've never stopped reading the local paper. You know, obviously my family is still there. I still own a home in the city. So, you know, I am still invested. You know, I may not be physically there right now, but I'm still invested. So much so that, you know, I'm kind of toying with the idea of going back, you know, to help with the Renaissance. They actually also have an organization that just got started called Detroit Homecoming, where its whole intention is to stop the brain drain and bring back expats. So, we'll see. I might be back.
Very cool. Buy some property up there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is the time. I know if people, you know, some people may think that it's, you know, it's still scary or they may be a little concerned. But what I will tell you is, if you don't buy it, someone else will, because it's literally selling for pennies on the dollar. And so if you have it, you know, if you do have the money to spare, it is an investment that will pay off for you dividends in the long run. So if you want to play the long game, it would definitely be, you know, time to make that investment, because by the time you're ready to retire, then you're set.
Right.
Yeah.
So according to your bio, you've delivered keynotes, lectures, trainings on strategy, digital media, and startups. Tell us what a digital media strategist is, and how'd you get into that space?
Yeah, I think, again, it was just always kind of my love for tech, but then the skills and the ability to communicate. So, you know, when like social first, you know, came onto the scene, it was really confusing for people. No one knew what it was and what to do with it. I just had a natural, you know, as a natural storyteller, but then with tech skills, I was able to marry those two together. So I was able to get into, you know, content strategy, digital strategy, and social strategy at a time that people were just literally still setting up Facebook pages. And luckily I worked for a nonprofit organization that was at the time going through some budget crisis, and I had an opportunity to basically make this space like a playground. So I learned pretty quick what to do, what not to do. It seemed like every month I was acquiring a new skill. And so what I found was that the background and the education that I had as a public relations professional, and specifically an accredited public relations professional, just married very well with the technical skills that I had. So I was able to kind of carve out a lane that at the time that I was doing it really didn't exist. And so that's, you know, what digital media, you know, strategy means to me, and, you know, to the places that I've worked at. It's being able to tell visual and textual stories in this digital space for very niche audiences, because that's another thing, you know, that's really interesting about digital spaces. It's not mass media, you know, and for a long time, advertisers and communications people and marketing people were so concerned with mass media. Let's make this blanket message. Let's throw it on a billboard on the freeway. Let's throw it in a commercial, and there, we've done our job. But what digital media does is it gives you an opportunity to talk to the audience you specifically want to talk to, you know, and engage with them and build community. So, you know, just being able to take all of that schooling, you know, and then actually apply it to something, you know, adding some extra skills with tech has served me very well.
Nice, nice. So let's talk a little bit about let's talk a lot about Colorstock. Tell us about Colorstock, where the idea came from, and give us the background on that.
Yeah. So this is I'm going to make the longest story as short as possible, but I'll still get to the details. So as a PR professional for like I said, 15 plus years, it never failed. I would always be charged with putting a campaign together. And in the process of putting that campaign together, one of the things you think about is your audience. So when you talk about startups or you talk about tech today, we refer to them as customer personas. But in communications and PR, those are your audiences. So I would always look for imagery to reflect my audience, and I couldn't find it. And frankly, it pissed me off. It was a pain point that was, to me, just seemed like it was way too easy to fix. And I think I just got to a point where I was almost disgusted at the fact that we couldn't fix it. Like, why will no one do this? Like, it just seemed silly to me. And for a long, and I've had the idea for Colorstock for quite some time. And so let me take a step back and let the audience know. Colorstock is a digital library featuring authentic images of people of color, right? So a stock photo site, right? And when I would look for these images again, I just didn't see them. Or if I saw them, they were, cheesy, corny, not pretty diverse, like watered down looking version of, of people of color, right? Or just specifically Black people. We're not even going to get into what, if you look up Asian or Native American or Middle Eastern on Google, you will get nothing. So a few years ago, I think I thought I just was fed up. And it was also a couple of years ago, I want to say 2013 was the explosion of the free stock photography sites, because I think people in general were just tired of cheesy looking photos. So I kept seeing these free photo sites popping up, 10 a day, a pack a day, one a day, or, a pack a month, one a day, whatever. And they were using Tumblr. And I said, well, that's a low barrier to entry. If you can find some images and put them on Tumblr and have people get to them, that's cool. I said, but on the other hand, I could do this, and I could give these images away for free. But what does that say as, a business owner of color? To me, it felt like if I didn't value the work, then other people wouldn't value it also. So if you didn't put value to it, people could abuse it. And so in 2013, I didn't know how to code at all. Let me not say at all. I mean, very, very little HTML. Didn't even remember when I learned. Very little HTML. So I didn't know how to code. And so I was a little nervous about even taking that step because I knew it was a problem, but I kept second guessing myself saying, but am I the one to fix this problem? Who am I to fix this problem? I don't know how to code. I don't know anything about, a startup. I've been working in nonprofits and educational institutions, all my professional life. Who am I to do this? So I think I let the idea kind of go away for about 6 months. And then it just kept coming back. I would see people on Twitter or see people in social spaces make these complaints. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do something about this because if no one else is, I'm going to. So I spent a good solid year of just learning everything I could. I, self-taught as far as code is concerned, using programs online. I learned everything I could about, startups, enrolled in a couple of incubators, just so that I could really get to the heart of what this would look like and how, if I turn this into a thing, what's the quickest way that I could get to, income, right? Like, how does this work? So, once I felt like I figured it out, I brought a co-founder on board and, we worked on our MVP. MVP at the time is, hey, let's get this thing live. What's the quickest way to live? Shopify. Let's go there, All right, now we got to get the photos. How do you do that, So, so that's basically how the idea came about and why, I knew that there was a need there. And then before we launched, people were like, this is, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this. Like, it's weird that people are saying this has changed my life because we're not solving hunger, right? But for some people, they were hungry, for these these images, right? So it's just been a blessing. And this is all really, we launched in August, so at the end of August. So this has been an awesome journey. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely let you know that that we'll definitely be using Colorstock, and I can vouch for what you just said as far as not being able to find, or being frustrated with not being able to find good quality photos of people of color, especially in tech, out on the internet. And the ones that you do find, they look staged, they look really watered down and kind of cheesy, like you said. I know we went through this some years ago with Bit. I can't remember exactly what we were trying to do, but we just couldn't find any good quality photos at all. And just the whole representation of the imagery of people of color online, positive images, is huge, and a lot of people are looking for that, and they just can't. Like you said, they can't find these good quality photos. So what you're doing is you're filling a need, and kudos to you for doing that and being able to come up with that idea, because it's, like I said, I think it's going to be, it's proven to be useful, and people we're definitely looking for something like this. So
yeah, I'm even shocked. Like at some of just you put your, so in this instance, I put together customer personas of who I believed would purchase. And what I found that was so interesting was when the signups came for launch, there were a lot of nonprofits, which I kind of knew because obviously I'd worked for nonprofits and that's what I needed, right? But also like small businesses. One of the first images we sold after launch was to a credit union in Florida, and it's like, and I'm sure that credit union has a marketing budget where they probably could have hired a photographer, right? But maybe they didn't, or maybe that just seemed cumbersome to them, to go through all of this rigmarole when they need a photo. And so they've been waiting for a photo, and then it just so happened they found a photo, on our site. When you talk about just authentic images, of people of color and showing them in this light, the interesting thing when we launched was that we weren't alone. And so there were two other folks who were in other parts of the country that were thinking the exact same thing and launched at the same time. Now, they have different niches, but the vein is still the same. So there's one organization that one company that just focusing on Black images, and then another that's even further down the funnel for Black female bloggers, because there are a lot of Black female bloggers, and they were blogging and they were putting images where they were specifically talking about things that happened to people of color or to Black women, and the only images they could find were of white hands, touching their desktops and touching their computers. And so that young lady said, hey, I'm going to fix this too. And so it just was interesting that, that we were having these same thoughts at the same time. I think for me, though, it was always important to show all people of color. And so, while I may be a Black woman, I think me doing Colorstock at this exact time was what was supposed to happen, because also a couple of years ago I had my ancestry mapped, my DNA mapped. And so I was able to find out, who I really am, right? And so I think it was even more important for me to make sure that all people of color were illustrated in these images, because I just know that these are the issues that I have, and I know, what it looks like, for a good friend of mine named Amy. She's one of the models on the site. She's Chinese, and if you look up Chinese women on the internet, you're not going to get a picture of Amy. You're going to get fetishized pictures, of Chinese women. If you look at Latino women, same thing. And so most of these images that are on Colorstock right now are of people that I know. They're actual people. Like, that's the kickers. Like, they're actual people that I know, and this is their actual life, right? So why is that? Tell me this, and I can kind of gauge a little bit, but I kind of want to hear it in your own words. Mm-hmm. Why that's important? Why is a company like Colorstock important? Why is it important for you to put out not just images, but positive images of people? Yeah. Yes. So it's important that you have positive images of people of color simply because it's a part of a narrative. And I think people forget that stories are literally as old as time. They're as old as time, and they are what connects people and weaves people together. Oral histories are passed down generations upon generations. Even, when people when they didn't have words, they drew pictures, right? So we have hieroglyphics. So imagery is just as important as words. And if when you watch the news and you see, they talk about criminals, there's a local television station here that demonstrates mugshots like every night. Like, here's today's mugshot. Right. And just based on crime and the proportional nature of crime, those images are going to be disproportionately associated with one race. So when you constantly have these types of images speaking into your brain, they begin to formulate what you believe to be true, whether it's true or not, because perception is everything. And so that's another reason why Colorstock is very important to me, because it really is about perception being reality for some people. And so the images that are shown are of real people doing real things, and just living their lives in the nuanced ways in which they live them. And you have to think that, when you read a newspaper and there's an article, there's always a picture, associated with it. And that stuff has to match up. It has to be complementary because just by association, if you see that picture with those words, you begin to melt those memories together. And so this is about creating positive imagery, but also positive memories for people, so that when you think of a person in tech, your brain now will scan and you will see a myriad of people when you think of a person in tech, not a white male, right? Right. So that to me is why, this is really important. Now, the other aspect of this is that I really feel like only we can really tell our stories, or we can tell them the best. And so it's just very important for me that if I said, hey, this is a need that I see, I think that's what also gave me the motivation to do it. Because I could have bugged and badgered Shutterstock or some, iStock photo to say, hey, you need to do this. But we know that they're not going to necessarily be as delicate in the situation. And I know this to be true. Someone shared an image with me 2 weeks ago that they were trying to, and they did it to prove a point, but they were on one of the big sites, and they typed in Native American, and they saw an image of a half-naked white woman with a headdress on. That's not Native American because she had a headdress on. That was terrible. She just should have tried out for the Redskins, right? Like, that's terrible. And so we see how the dominant culture displays, imagery of us. And so that's the other reason why it's important for us to claim this stuff and take it over to say, hey, we can tell our stories the best. We know who we are. We know how we actually dress when we go to work and what this actually looks like. So yeah, that's the other reason why this is really important and why visuals really do matter, especially in today's society.
And I love that the point that you made. It aligns so well with what we at Blacks in Technology have always been about. And I always say, if you don't take control of your own image, somebody else will. And that's exactly what you're doing, is you're taking control of how we're portrayed, and you're making it positive instead of letting somebody else do that. And most of the time, they're not going to do it in a positive light at all.
No, they're not, because they don't know how to approach it, because it's just not a life that they live, and so they don't know how to approach it. I took the camera out one day. I was just taking my daughter to her coding class, and her good friend from school was sitting next to her. And when I saw that image, I was like, oh, God, I have to shoot this. Like, I have to shoot this because this is an example, when we talk about just showing our children even in good, in a good light. I don't want, we watch the news and they're trying to, arrest our children. I think of Ahmad. Bringing his clock to school and a teacher misinterpreting, what this clock means, when for him it's child genius, and this young man is arrested, right? And so when I saw my daughter and her friend in coding class, I saw Child Genius, and I said, well, I'm going to take take a picture of that, and that tells a different story than the picture that we have of Ahmad that's going to be on the internet forever with handcuffs on. And that's not fair. And that's how they want to illustrate our children when we know better, right? And so until we can start to control the messages that we're putting out, we can't control it. I think maybe that's even the biggest message of this, is that we actually do have control over these images. We're all reporters now, right? We all have cameras in our pockets. We all have the internet in our pockets, and we have the ability to help shape these notions of who we are.
And that's interesting that you say that. First, I want to say, I applaud you for your efforts in helping to tackle the image issue that we have. I actually shouted out Kalia K Speaks today on Twitter because she's doing some cool things to create positive visibility around people of color in tech. She has a website where what is her website? I'm going to shout her out right now, and it's KaliaSpeaks.com, and that's I'm sorry, Kayla Speaks. That's CAILAK Speaks.com, and she actually interviews people of color in tech. And spots and highlights them on her website. And she followed Blacks in Technology today, and anybody who follows Blacks in Technology, I always take a look and see what they're about, see what they're doing. And I noticed that she was doing all these great interviews, and I'm just like, that's dope. I love it.
Yeah, and it probably came. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I sent a tweet to her instantly, like, I love what you're doing to create visibility around people of color in tech. Keep up the good work, the great work, because that is needed. The internet is the biggest media outlet there is on this planet right now, and I love to see people of color take more advantage of what the internet has to offer and our position as far as, utilizing it to create these positive images.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because that makes me, that's just one more reason why I was so gung-ho about Colorstock. And I've never been like this jazzed about anything. Maybe the classroom, but like my students even they want to know about what it is I'm doing. The huge thing that you just said is that was important for me was that we become content creators, not content consumers. And that's where I think for the first few years, it took us some time to kind of figure out what the internet was. I'll put that in quotes, but it took us some time to kind of get accustomed to it, right? But now we know what it is and how powerful it is. It's time for us to become content creators. There's no reason why one of us could not have invented Twitter, right? There's no reason.
Right.
And there's even now starting to be some backlash because I am a prolific tweeter, but there's a backlash from quite a few of us who we find that our tweets have now found their way into major publications articles, right? And these writers will go back and forth with you about why your tweet is now up for public consumption, and so we're having some ethical conversations about that. But how do we take our power and say, do we not tweet anymore? Of course not. We're not going to not tweet, right? But can we become smarter about how we're using these tools? And maybe let's just become a content creator. Let's make our own tools, right? And so, that's another reason why I feel like Colorstock is really important, because it's just one more angle to show to people that in all areas of tech and all, just in every place that tech is, you can figure out a way to become a content creator. We don't have to just consume this stuff all the time. We can create also.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit more about the people behind Colorstock. Like who are they, and what are their roles?
Yeah. So actually, I'm looking for some more people to join me in Colorstock. I'm actually I have some postings out now for some equity hires, and I would really love to bring a product manager on board to assist, because I can't keep up with the demand and
right.
having that customer loop together. And then also a tech officer, because we really want to move into a very unique platform, one that we create on our own. But so right now, my co-founder and I, unfortunately, he's left to go work on another project. So I'm just on my lonesome right now. But for the past 3 months, that my co-founder and I were working hard, putting all this stuff together, using virtual assistants, just burning the midnight oil. So now it's just me, but yeah, I'm ready to bring on some staff so that we can have a good 3 or 4 solid folks working on the project before we begin to try to start, raising some funds to move on to the next level. But yeah, so but the good thing is that even though it's just me kind of steering the ship, Colorstock is really built around, it's a community, and it's really built around the photographers, believe it or not. We really feel like the photographers are the first part of they're a very important part of what it is we're doing. And so right now, I think we have about 6 photographers who are contributors. And so their work is featured on the site, and they are part of the community. So there would be no Colorstock without them. So I have to say thank you. I have to definitely say thank you, because they really believed in the vision, and they were willing to come on board and be a part of something, not knowing what could happen. And they have hung around, and they love it, and they get their commission checks once a month, and so that makes them happy. But the biggest thing, though, is, they really believe in the vision, and they're excited about where they know where they can see this going. A couple of them even said, "I wish I would have thought of this myself," and I was like, "Yeah, but I did." So,
so in getting a little bit more into Colorstock, the business side of it, and we're actually gonna touch on contributing and things like that. But describe Colorstock's the business model for Colorstock, and give our listeners kind of a more of a high level understanding of your business model.
Yeah. So the high level version is we have stock photos available for purchase, a singular image. So starting at about $8, going all the way up to $25, depending on the type of image. Not a lot of them that are $25, but they're ones that you're not going to go out and be able to take a photograph of yourself. So those are like our historical ones, monuments, statues, things where you need a really good vantage point to take imagery of. But yeah, so it's available for purchase, standard license or extended license. So extended license, you want to do more things with it. But most people, will probably purchase, standard, because that's all they need. But yeah, that's very simple, high level of how it works. I mean, right now we have photos, but the next iteration would include videos, vectors, music, probably. So so the intention would be to not necessarily compete with the big boys like a Color or a Shutterstock or an iStock, because they have. Some of them even say they claim they have 100 million photos. But what's 100 million photos if you can't find, what it is you need? And so we're very boutique focused, where we know that being small helps us be nimble and fast and get you the actual images that you want. So a customer can say to me 1 month, "Hey, we're looking for this type of photo," and 1 month later it's going to pop up on the site, because we're going to actively go out there and seek based on what their needs are. So that's high level.
Okay. So you mentioned your licensing models. How does the licensing models work?
Yeah, so standard license will get you will be okay with the standard license. You get up to, I have to double check my site myself a couple of times. I think up to 50,000 users, but again, no one, unless you're running a huge campaign, you're not going to use an image 50,000 times. So an extended license, extended license goes beyond that, plus for multiple users. So perfect example, we sold an image to a national nonprofit that their model is, they might even be international. Yeah, they're an international nonprofit. And so their business model is that they have affiliates in just about every major city. And so the image is a part of a packet that they want every affiliate to be able to use. So they're going to have an extended license, right? Because there's multiple users. Who knows what folks will be using it for, how many times they'll use it. But as your standard license is probably where everyone, the majority of the customers are going to come in at, a couple of blog pictures, few social media posts, maybe an ebook or something. But yeah, so.
Excellent. And you mentioned earlier that you had photographers who contribute, but does your site allow others to contribute and add stock photos to your catalog?
Oh yeah. It doesn't. Yeah, I'm not. The interesting thing too about what I'm seeing is just, for one, I had to learn tech, in order to pull this off. I had to learn the code and had to learn startup, the whole system. But what I didn't realize is how much I needed to learn about the stock photography game. Like, this is like serious business, and I had no idea that there was like a stock photography game. But what I'm finding is hobbyists and folks who maybe, maybe this is the career they want. They are gung-ho about the site, whereas like my old school folks, your people who might take the wedding photos or the graduation photos, like, they don't want any parts of this, and that's fine, because maybe you're not my customer, but yeah, anyone, it's specifically like come this December, now that we're in December, I like to do like a call for photos. So this month I'm focusing on travel photos. And most travel photos come from people who just have a really nice camera and a good eye, right? And so if you're just a person who doesn't necessarily consider themselves a photographer, but you have a really good eye and some really good photos, you are more than welcome to become a contributor. And the same, I don't classify folks. You're a contributor as far as we're concerned. It doesn't matter if you're professional, if you have a digital portfolio, or if you're just showing us your Instagram account. We judge the images based on do they fit with the vision, and are they the right size? Do we feel like someone would want to purchase them? Yeah.
Okay, so the requirements. So what are some of the requirements around different? I know you mentioned if they kind of fit the vision, but are there like technical requirements for the photos, and if so, what are those?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely with photos, technical requirements, again, and I learned a lot about the stock photo game. It has to be a certain size, preferably like 300 DPI, because that's the best quality. And anything that you get with 300 DPI is probably going to be about 3,600 by, maybe 2,800, like minimum, right? So if you were to translate that to, well, what would that look like if I printed it? If you were to print it, it would have to be an awesome looking image as big as a 20 by 30 photo. Now, most of us don't have 20 by 30 photos in our home, but we know what they look like. We know what art looks like that big, and what the clarity of a photo would need to look like. So no thumbnails, no small little images. Cell phones can actually take very, very good images that size. You just have to know what you're doing. If you were doing cell phone photography, they can't be heavily edited. Now, a filter here or there, but nothing, it has to be as pure as possible so that you can sell it to someone else, so that they can, throw their own edits. You can't overthink how the consumer will use the photo, so they need to be as clear as possible. And then, the vision, meeting the vision really does mean authenticity. Like you can look at a photo and tell if something is staged or if the person kind of seems, disingenuine or just stuff's a little off. So the vision in that aspect is one angle, but the other part of the vision too is, does this photo say Colorstock, right? And just because, for example, I actually got some pushback from someone. I have a few images of some construction workers. They all happen to be Latino. but they're construction workers. And so I just got a little pushback too from the community that says, I don't necessarily think this is the best image. And, we had some dialogue about that because there are stereotypical, images that we have of Latinos doing construction work or doing manual labor. But the good thing is that the conversation that we had about this was very fruitful, and so it definitely let me know what the community wanted to see in that. So the images are not offensive in the least, but are they the best reflection of Colorstock? And that's the other good thing about what we're doing here. We like to think of it as the 3 C's, and so it's the catalog, conversation, and community. And if the community says, no, this is not what we think, matches up with your original vision, we have no problem, eliminating those images. And then the last one would be that they are forward thinking and like the way they look. Like photography actually has stages also in trends, and some photography just looks kind of old school. And so think maybe of your parents' or your grandparents' photo album. Photography at that time was very staged and very posed, whereas photography now it almost seems like it's in motion, and it's candid. And so that's the other aspect of the vision, that it has to look like it's in motion, or it's very candid and almost as if a camera just showed up and took a picture of you living your natural life. And so, I think that's another reason why Instagram as a platform is so popular, because it illustrates. Most really good Instagram accounts illustrate that type of life, that type of lifestyle, just the way that we live.
Wow. So it sounds to me like you had to really become well-versed in a number of different areas in order to get this thing rolling. I mean, because you're it sounds like you really had to know your stuff about photography, about printing photography. So it's one thing to snap a picture, and I know just working where I used to work at an architectural firm, printing was a huge deal, and printing something correctly is an even bigger deal. It sounds like you had to be well-versed in that. Like I said, well-versed in the startup life, of course, well-versed in the tech side of things. So, I mean, it sounds like this really kept you busy.
It has. I can't believe it. Like, when I think about all the stuff that I've learned in, like, the last 6 months, it's crazy. Like, I was just telling my husband, the best thing I think about Colorstock is that I finally had an excuse to buy a really nice camera. But I told him, I'm like, you could not have told me a year ago that I would be taking pictures. And I'm allergic to flowers, but I've been taking so many pictures of like plants because I'm practicing. I'm getting to people. Like, I've taken people shots. I just take them from behind, but I'm getting to people. But I'm like, wow, this is like awesome. And I think that's the other thing that I think as a startup founder, I think, how like people talk about like why some startups fail, and it's not because of passion. It is not because of money, because a lot of these startups that are failing have like ridiculous. I would love for someone to throw $5 million in my lap. I promise you, because we would get there so much quicker. But I think what I discovered is I think it's that they don't even really know the industry, because the industry is not startup, and maybe that's what they thought it was. Maybe they thought it was tech startup. Maybe they thought that was their industry, but it's really about what you're selling. So I think about like HomeJoy, for example. Did you have you ever used HomeJoy, or did you hear of their story? The company that was coming in and cleaning. Okay, so HomeJoy, San Francisco, 2 young people, really gung-ho, great idea. I used HomeJoy, and I was totally upset when they went out of business. But they went out of business.
So what is HomeJoy?
So they were like a Uber house cleaning, like the Ubers of house cleaning, right? Okay. So you schedule your house cleaner, and they, your maid or whatever. I don't like to say maid, but your house cleaner, and they you put them on a schedule, and they come clean the house up, right? And so they went out of business because they didn't understand human resources, right? It's like the simplest thing. They could not explain to their contractors that they were contractors. Something as simple as that. They could not explain to them that they were W-4 contractors and not employees. And so when February, March, and May came around and folks were getting ready to do their taxes, they, the type of employees that they were bringing on or the type of contractors that they were bringing on, these were people who were, maybe making $12 an hour, right? So they don't know either. They don't know the difference between, if someone takes the taxes out of their check and not. So these folks now are livid that they have tax bills simply because the company that they decided to engage in a business relationship with could not explain to them the nature of their business, right? And so that's why it was very important for me to also learn as much as I could about photography, because I don't just have a tech startup. I have a photography company, and I'm selling images. And what do I say to a customer who buys an image that says, this image isn't big enough for me to do anything with? Or, so I bought this picture, but it's so much crap going on in the background, I can't use it for anything. I can't overlay my graphics or put my words or whatever on top of it, right? So I really had to understand that there was a difference between stock photography and just regular photography. It's a huge difference. We're not Ansel Adams, right? You're not going to find Ansel Adams on this website. You're going to find an image that has a color scheme that is clearly identifiable, that you can match up some graphics on top of it and stick it on your blog. And that's what you're going to buy, right? But I had to understand that in order to do this.
I tell you, I'm learning some things tonight that I had no idea that it was this involved.
It is.
I've used stock images from sites before, and you take it for granted that they're there, and that it's there because just somebody just took a picture, and and of course that's the simple way of saying, but there's actually a lot more involved in how that picture is taken, and everything else around it. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, so, and this is there. I'm sorry, I was just going to say
go ahead.
Too. Like even in just the imagery, the pictures themselves. Several of these, I would say a good 75 of these photos that are in the catalog right now, I styled. And so I even had to now, okay, I'm an art director now all of a sudden. So it's crazy, but I just believe in the vision so much that I was like, if I have to do 20 things to see it happen, it's going to happen. And I just have to learn how to do it to make it happen,
Definitely. That's the truest form of an entrepreneur. If you don't know and you don't have the resources, then you go out and you learn it yourself and you do it yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about, we're going to get a little bit into the tech part of this. Tell us about, the platform that Colorstock is built on and why you decided on a specific platform.
Yeah. So Colorstock is actually built on Shopify. And there, we looked at a couple of things. My co-founder and I, when we first got started, we looked at, we looked at WooCommerce. We even looked at, there are some platforms that are just for photography. And they're terrible, obviously. They look awful because there's no designer associated with it. It's very rudimentary, and I was like, no, the vision has to be all the way around. So it was either WooCommerce or Shopify. Now, when you talk about startups, you talk about your MVP, what's minimum viable product. So minimum viable product at the time based on cost and usability was Shopify. And so that's where, the images are now, and that's where our catalog sits now. And actually, it's a really good tool. When most people think of Shopify, you think of physical goods, you think of T-shirts or, things that you could have mailed to you in your home. But they actually do digital very well with their digital downloads feature. The back end is very robust. So instead of your WooCommerce on WordPress, where you would have to have a lot of plugins and, kind of jerry-rigging some code to kind of get it to do what it is you want it to do. Shopify, now, works the best for what it is that we need it to do. The more money comes in, then now we have to look at a different platform. And that's going to have to happen eventually. I think we're going to get to critical mass will probably be a library of around 500 images. because at that point in time it's going to become cost prohibitive to be on that space. And so, to get to critical mass, that's another reason why I want to bring the CTO on sooner rather than later, one that can help, we can build a more robust tool to manage these images. Because that's the other thing, and maybe that's another reason why folks maybe shied away from this space, was maybe they felt like it would be reinventing the wheel because a platform exists already, like a Shutterstock or like an iStock. And those places are huge. They're, I'm sure their offices are, have their own servers. They're probably using Amazon, but they're also probably using a combination of their own servers because you know how data is. We put a video on the site, and that's 10 photos, right? And so you have to do a give and take. But yeah, so that's the platform we're on now. And so, I thought long and hard about that. I thought that maybe like all this code would be for naught. And look at all this stuff I learned, and here I am, like air quotes, cheating and putting it on, a prepackaged deal. But again, as a CEO, I had to make some decisions about, how do we get this to market sooner rather than later. And so, so we're using Shopify.
Right. I mean, and that's the smart thing to do as an entrepreneur anyhow, is, kind of test your product out there and see if it's even worth, you don't want to have somebody or pay somebody to code this huge site and then nobody use it.
Right. And nobody goes there. And that's the other neat thing that I actually like about Shopify is that, this search is very granular. It's like you can type. I'm very descriptive. When we have a nomenclature system for the way that images are loaded up, and if you can search by a photographer, you can search by certain specifics. The catalog now, because there are enough images there that we have 9 major categories. You could search by categories. You could search by the person of color that you're looking for, food, not food, at work, not at work, on the street, artistic, fashion. So that's the other reason why I like Shopify. Plus, it also tells me what people are looking for. So, again, that's just that customer feedback loop working without me or, a virtual assistant having to do that work. Shopify tells us what people are looking for also. So I definitely appreciate that.
Excellent. So, and you're also involved in other things. I know you've spoke at quite a few different places, conferences, and looks like Startup Weekend and other places. Tell us about some of these things you're involved in, such as Women's Wednesday and SheSource.
Yeah. So SheSource, I'll do SheSource first. SheSource is actually an online database that, it's solving another problem. Very similar to Colorstock. The Women's Media Center got sick and tired of of every panelist and every expert on television being a man, right? And most likely a white man. And so they said, we're going to fix this. And so they created an online database of women experts. The topics are endless. Like it's ridiculous, the things that these women are ridiculously intelligent, and they know stuff about everything. And so it's a database. And so I am so appreciative to be on this site. I remember when they first launched it, I wondered if I would ever be at a place where I could be on the site. And so when I submitted, because you have to go through a submission process, I was so nervous, and they sent me back a note, was like, of course. And I'm like, why do you want me on your site? So it's an awesome brain. They refer to it as a brain trust, and it is definitely that. And now Women's Wednesday, I actually had a show last night. But Women's Wednesday is a segment on Make It Plain with Mark Thompson, and he has a 6 to 9 Monday through Friday on Sirius XM Progress Channel 127. And so, like I said, Women's Wednesday is a segment on Wednesdays, and I co-host with him. And that was, that was just a lot of, so a few years of work being on the speaker circuit and meeting markets and conventions, and just having a really good working relationship with him, and doing a couple of guest spots here and there. And then that came to a full-blown, co-hosting gig. So, like every other Wednesday, I co-host this segment with him. And this year I've had some awesome women on the show. We had Catherine Finney, on. We have Majora Carter on. Yeah. So, and we're going to have a really interesting next year. Oh, we also had the first Black woman astrophysicist. She got her PhD from Yale. So she was on. So again, it's, you know, when we talk about gentrification and me bringing diversity to digital spaces, this is simply one more place, you know, that I like to do that. And so I'm using this platform to highlight my voice, but other voices of women who are doing awesome things, who are making changes in society. And so I love it. So I keep telling everybody I'm going to slow down. I'm just going to focus on a couple of things, which is nuts because that's how can you focus on a couple of things. But yeah, it's all next year. It's just Colorstock. It's just Women's Wednesday. Like, that's it. Like, nothing else. I can't do anything else.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, kudos to you for everything that you're doing. I mean, that's, you know, I love just hearing these type of stories and love hearing about people who are representing our people in the correct light. I see it's so disheartening just when you see, even if, you know, you go to sites and it's a news story about, you know, a young Black person getting shot or not even young Black, just a Black person, period, being shot or some incident with the police, and then you start looking at the comments. You get this because you want better for, you know, you've got young kids and you want better for them. You want better for this country, and then you see this type of stuff, and it's just like, oh man, can we just get something positive out there, especially for our people that represents us, you know? Because I always tell people, when people see these negative things about us in the news or in the press, I said that's the minority. Like, people don't understand that. They make our minority the majority, right? Yeah. But that's really the minority. Yep. And for the most part, that's just a small section of our population. And even the circumstances around that we can go into all that about why that is and why that situation came about and things like that. But that's just still a small section. There are tons more of hardworking Black people, intelligent Black people, law-abiding Black people that are out here just wanting to survive and not caught up in everything else than people want to give credit for. So anytime I see people, anyone doing some great things like that, I just have to, you know, tip my hat to people like you.
Thank you. And the other thing that for me, everyone kind of plays their role in society, right? And so I look at some of my contemporaries on Twitter, and a lot of them are activists, and I love them to death, and I pray for them every night, and I wish them the best, and I send them money when they need it and the support when they need it. On my end, I'm a mother of two. I'm married. I have, I'm trying to plan for retirement. I'm just trying to do a lot of different things, right? And I've always had my head in business. I am clearly politically involved. I talk about politics when I'm on Women's Wednesday. But this is my activism. And that's another thing that I think we have to let people know, that you don't have to feel ashamed, or embarrassed at the fact that maybe you didn't go out and protest, or you're not laying in the street, or you're not yelling Black Lives Matter, or maybe you have to go to work and put your smiley face on, right? Like, you don't have to be ashamed of that, because just you showing up and being you, it's activism. It might be little a activism, might not be capital A activism, but it's still activism. And so this work that I'm doing, I am happy that my contemporaries see what I'm doing to be just as vital as the work that it is they're doing, because we're all trying to get free. I'm simply using the professional pursuits that I've had as my way to get free, because I don't have the luxury of laying out in the street and being arrested for a few days. I have to take care of my family, but this is how I help us get free. And so, when they have images that they can put on their websites that are asking for change, then they have what they need. When they know they can come to me and have that platform to get their stories out, on the radio show, they know they can come to me. And so I still consider this work to be activist work and to be freedom work. And yeah, you're right. This is the majority of what we're doing. And it's not fair when the media portrays us in a different light. But again, I just go back to what I was saying earlier. We have the ability to change those those narratives, and we can do it in as many different ways as we can. And I definitely think tech really is going to be the equalizer for people of color. They always talk about education as the equalizer. Tech is going to be our equalizer because we can use these tools to really change the narrative.
Definitely, and I definitely vouch for everything that you mentioned because, I tell people all the time, this is my crusade, right?
Yeah.
Doing Blacks in technology, spotlighting, highlighting people in our community who are doing great things in tech, and even beyond that. But I say that's my crusade, and I always tell people I'm not the type. Blacks in technology is not about trying to. We're not out there shouting about the 2% and Google
right.
and 2% and Twitter, and it's to me, for me, I should say, what we're doing combats that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It combats, them, because then it's like, this is the action that we're doing, and those conversations, as far as going to Silicon Valley, talking about the 2%, those conversations definitely need to be had. I'm not having those conversations because I feel my purpose is to highlight people of color and not
right.
to say how bad Silicon Valley is to work in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's to say, hey, we have people out there that's working in this industry that are doing great things, and either they're entrepreneurs building things, or they're out there soaking up this knowledge, and we have some very smart people out here in the industry, and it's my job to highlight these people, to bring them together in this community, and portray ourselves in this huge collective, and portray ourselves positively. So that's my crusade, and so I definitely understand where you're coming from when you say, this is our activism.
Yeah.
So what's next for Colorstock?
Yeah, so what's next for Colorstock is, just growth. After we staff up with the 2 additional, our first 2 employees, I'm so excited about that. But we're going to start, we're probably going to start raising some capital. I want to bring on, when the folks come on, I want this decision to be made with them in mind, so I'm not going to commit to a platform just yet or a strategy, but we will definitely be raising funds so that we could expand the catalog, build out that stronger site, and then look for that niche thing that is not replicable. Because right now where we are, somebody a little faster, maybe, I don't want to give too much away, but, could totally take can try to take a swipe at us. So we're going to be working on building that thing that can't be replicated, so that we can really cement our space, and get a strong foothold, in this stock photo game, because it is a game. So that's what's next for Colorstock.
Excellent. And what's next for? I know Colorstock is next for you as well, but what are some other things that you're going to be doing yourself personally?
Yeah. So focusing on Colorstock, focusing on the next year for Women's Wednesday. This will wrap up. This will be my first year. So it's funny because I really kind of just got the hang of it. So I'm like, I'm definitely not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing this. And then I'm going to, I used to do a lot of consulting too, and so I'm going to step away from that to focus on Colorstock. But I would love to actually get back on the speaking circuit, and actually, just pay for play, speaking circuit. So those are kind of the 3 things I'm focused on this year, or 2016.
Excellent. Definitely get your face out there and get up on stage. It kind of fits the whole narrative of what we're talking about positive imagery. And then one of the things that I always try to encourages people to get out there at these tech conferences and speak. Not even attending is one thing. I definitely want people to attend these conferences because we need to diversify these conferences as well. I went to a ton of conferences this year, and it's still dismal as far as our participation in these conferences from an attendee standpoint, right? From our attendee standpoint and from a speaker standpoint. Go ahead.
Yeah, I spoke in San Francisco at a communications conference, and it was just really funny after it was over because this lady came up to me and I specifically did a 15-minute talk because I was talking about how communicators, specifically professional communicators, need to learn how to speak startup because it's just kind of just the concepts that happen in startup are now going to start moving over to business, and so they should prepare for it. And now, mind you, I've been a college educator for 7+ years. I have delivered 2 TED Talks, and just have speaking at a ton of places, right? So after it's over, this lady comes up to me and says, "Oh my gosh, you should submit for longer SAG. You were really good. I would write a recommendation for you." And I just looked at her like, "Are you silly?" I was like, "Ma'am." I was like, "I was picked to do this. If you think I just rolled in off the street and I specifically wanted to do a 15-minute talk. How are you going to white-explain me about my speech?" I just said, I thought that was the craziest thing ever.
Right.
She just knew nothing about me, and I was just like, she is hilarious. But anyway, we have to do it because we are smart, we are intelligent, we are well-spoken, we're great storytellers, we're naturally funny, most of us are. So it's just the perfect opportunity to showcase our expertise. And so I think we have to get over this imposter syndrome, thinking that we're not supposed to be in the room so that we can actually show people what we're good at. And so I just, like I said, I was just tickled by her comment. I was like, okay, well, thanks. Here's my information. Send me that recommendation. I just thought that was the funniest thing ever.
She made it sound like somebody was looking out the door of the conference hall, just looking on the street, and they just picked you. Hey, you.
Yeah, hey, you ain't doing nothing. Come up here and talk for a second. I was like, okay.
Right.
So really funny. And then, interestingly enough, someone that was in the room, I guess, I don't know if they were previously following me on Twitter or not or whatever, but anyway, we were in another, we were just in a Twitter chat, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I saw you speak in San Francisco, I loved you." And it was just really interesting because it just showed the dichotomy between how we are received by, people who look like us versus how we're received by people who don't look like us. That woman who talked to me on Twitter just knew something, when she saw. And so when she saw that I opened Colorstock, I told her, I said, "Hey, look, I took my own advice. I gave you guys advice when I was in there, but I took my own advice." So obviously I knew what I was talking about, right? Whereas the other lady, but anyway.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Definitely had a great time speaking with you. Before we get out of here, let people know how they can get in contact with you, your Twitter handle, email address, website, all that.
Yeah. All right. So you guys get colorstock.com because, of course, somebody is squatting on Colorstock. I'm going to get that lady. But, yeah, get colorstock.com, get Colorstock at Twitter and also at Instagram. And you can find me personally at Gentrification with a J on Twitter and a bunch of other places, Flipboard, GitHub, all that good stuff. And my personal website also is JeniferDaniels.com, and Jenifer's with one N. My mother was also very special, and she named, she took an N out. So that's where you can reach me.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Jenifer. And I definitely want to thank you for supporting Blacks in Technology. I know you're part of our Slack group as well.
Yes.
And the Slack group is growing all the time. We're almost up to 300 people on
Oh,
Slack
okay,
group.
Good.
Yeah, if you're
I get my notes.
Yeah, it is. We've got some people on there that talk quite a bit, and I try to definitely keep engaged with it. So, so definitely thanks for the support, and we definitely wish you well in the future, and keep us in the loop with Colorstock. If you ever need anything from Blacks in Technology, you say, "Hey, Colorstock is going live with a new platform. Can you announce this?" Let us know, and it's done.
All right,
or anything of the sort. So we definitely love supporting our community and the things that people are doing. So definitely just keep us in the loop.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. What a good podcast. That was great. Love having Jenifer on. Just to let you know, Blacks in Technology is a tech-focused community and media organization, and we're focused on increasing diversity in technology. We're always focused on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist our members with their continued professional growth and development. So if you want to partner with us, send us an email to partnerships@blacksintechnology.net. If you want to sponsor one of these great podcasts, send us an email to sponsorship@blacksintechnology.net. That's it for this episode of the Blacks in Technology Big Tech Talk podcast. We love our listeners. If you like what you hear, you want to send us any suggestions or comments, email them to us at contactus@blacksintechnology.net. Join us in a couple of weeks, December 17th. We are going to be speaking with some people from Step It Up America. Step It Up America is a STEM initiative and community program that trains and hires minority women in the field of information technology. So we're actually going to have, this is going to be exciting because my partner, Jenifer Apperson, in Blacks in Technology, she's going to be joining us on here as a co-host, and we're actually going to have 3 women from the Step It Up America initiative on the show, along with the representative of Step It Up America. So you don't want to miss that. We're going to be talking to these women and talking to them about how tech has, how they entered tech and how it's changed their life. So you don't want to miss that. That's December 17th, same bat time, same bat channel. And remember, tech yourself before you wreck yourself. Take care and have a good night.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.